Yeah, hi guys. I hope I'm audible and the screen is also visible. So there might be a small delay in the transmission. So the stream might be slightly delayed. So the question, whatever you ask, I'll anyway be answering those questions. But it might take like 5 or 6 seconds for it to get reflected on the audio or for the response, appropriate response. All right. So please bear with that because there seems to be certain connection error. All right. So yeah, so I can see that most of you already have questions related to a lot of things that you would like to ask. So let me just take you across to the process, the interview process that had happened. I'll also give you certain questions, and also we'll be discussing on the tips and tricks that can be used while you face your interview for Infosys. And then we can probably discuss more on the questions, whatever you have. All right. So cool. Right. So let's get started with the workshop. So there are certain analysis what we have done. So to take you across the analysis what we have done so far. So speaking of the analysis, the first thing is about the documents. So do you have to keep any documents intact, or do you have to prepare any new document, merge all the documents and everything like that? So if you have questions related to this, so there were only two documents that were asked when it comes to the interview. So one is your college ID card. The second is your government ID proof. All right. So this government ID proof can be anything. So please have these both in a digital form as well as a soft copy or a original form, or like the physical form. So if in case they'll probably ask you to show spot it towards the camera. But if you're not able to show it appropriately, they might ask you to upload it via the platform also. So please have two forms, have the documents in the two forms. That is a digitalized form and the physical form. All right. So this was about the document. Nothing else was asked. So do not have to worry about all the other things, right? So any one government ID proof is sufficient. Then when it comes to panelists, most of the cases I can see that out of, let's say, 10 cases, 9 or 8 cases, we just had one panelist. All right. So the interviews, what had occurred so far, we just had one panelist, and it was sort of a technical come HR round. So he was asking questions from both your HR field and your technical concepts, right? So there's only one panelist. So you do not have to worry if you have two panelists. We have seen one or two rare cases, but yeah, most of the cases we just had one panelist in the interview. All right. Third point, duration. So the actual duration, what you've got via mail, I think it is 30 minutes. But on an average, yeah, it is 30 minutes only. Some people, it was just 10 to 15 minutes. For some people, it was somewhere around 45 minutes as well. So it all depends on what are the answers you give and how do you explain the situation and how the HR feels about you, right? So on an average, yes, the duration is going to be 30 minutes, but slightly plus or minus 15, it might take place, depending on the answers, whatever you give. All right. So, okay, the next thing is platform, right? So you'll have to be pretty much aware of the platform because they are operating in Cisco WebEx platform. So this WebEx platform, all the tools are pretty much same like the other platforms what you've seen, like be it Google Meet or Skype. So it's slightly different. So you might have to get familiarized with the tools what the Cisco WebEx has. So try installing the app, and if you have installed it in your laptops, I think that should suffice. So it also runs on the browser, but I would advise you to install the software and then probably go to the interviews. All right. So that's the thing. And when it comes to your technical specifications, so as I told, you'll have to take care of the platform. So if you try running it via browsers, right? So sometimes it will not work appropriately. All right. So I would definitely advise you to install the Cisco WebEx software and then go about with it. And other technical specifications, what you would need is a webcam. Definitely yes. And screen share is also important. Okay, so you'll have to know where exactly you can use the button for screen share. I'll tell you tell you why. So in the next coming up slides of mine, I have an important fact for you. So you'll have to also know where exactly you can click the button for screen share. All right. So these are the main things, and also yeah, please have a check on your audio jacks and the common things what you're supposed to be preparing for your virtual drives. All right. So based on these analysis, do you guys have any questions? You can just drop it over there in the chat box. Okay, to answer one of the questions or the two or three of the questions, what is the difference between phase one and phase two? So it's simple, guys. They've split the entire interview process into two phases. So they're going to be gradually doing it. Okay, so they've just given the names as phase one and phase two for their convenience. So there is no differentiation or there is no specific preference what they'll be giving across to the phases. So just for their convenience, they've given the naming conventions accordingly. Okay, so you do not have to worry about it. So it is just for their naming conventions. All right. Next thing, what are the tentative dates? So the tentative dates, again, it depends on the colleges and the region. So they'll start it probably, they have already started it. So they'll probably stretch it across November first week also. So yeah, so that's about the tentative dates. So I think these are the questions what you had in the most in the live chat. Think we can go for the next few certain other points. Anything else you guys want me to answer? Think we can go next few points. Cool. So yeah, so let's say the important concepts what you're supposed to be prepared on, right? So when it comes to the concepts what you're supposed to be prepared on in Infosys interviews, as you know, they have taken circuitry and non-circuitry branches also, correct? So they've taken people from mechanical stream, they've taken people from ESC stream. So it's a mix and match over there. So there will not be any differentiation when it comes to concepts. The concepts will be same, but anyway, there are certain leniency given to you when it comes to specific streams. So I'll tell you first the concepts and I'll tell you where exactly the leniencies are given. All right. So first thing is software development lifecycle. So irrespective of what stream you are from, so even if you are from a mechanical stream or a EC stream or a CS or IT or whatever, so software development lifecycle concepts have been seen to be asked a lot when it comes to this year's Infosys Drive. So please be familiar with the software development lifecycle. It is pretty simple. It's basically all theories and no calculation. So I just have to be aware of certain models like waterfall model, agile, big bang. Okay, a lot of models are there. So it's basically a theoretical concept. All right. So you do not have to worry about any programming knowledge involved over here. So you can just prepare it like let's say in 1 or 2 hours probably. So you can just brush up on the peripherals and you'll have to be ready with it. All right. So software development lifecycle. Second thing is OOPS concept. So they probably had started with the OOPS concept, right? So irrespective of what your forte is, so be it Java, be it Python, be it C, C++, whatever it is, there was one at least question which was asked related to OOPS, object-oriented programming concepts. All right. So you have to be clear with these concepts as well. So what are the questions asked in depth? We'll go about with it in certain time. So OOPS is one more thing what you'll have to be familiar with. Second thing, fundamentals of programming. So there were also scenarios where certain pseudocode questions were asked, like, one person was asked to write a factorial program. The other person was asked to write, a Fibonacci series. So right. So please be familiar with the fundamentals of programming. So you might be asked, you might not be asked with specific languages in mind, right? But you might also be asked to prepare on the certain peripherals like the pseudocodes. All right. So that's about fundamentals of programming. Right. So next thing is fundamentals of technical concepts. So there's a small difference between fundamentals of programming and fundamentals of technical concepts. So when I say technical concept, there are a lot of things involved. For example, we have something called as dynamic programming. We have algorithms, right? So slightly complex they are, but anyway, you would have to brush up on the peripherals. So there were questions asked from dynamic programming, like what exactly is dynamic programming. So we'll try analyzing all these questions furthermore. So these are the basic things what you'll have to prepare on when it comes to Infosys. All right. So apart from this, if you are worried, okay, are these the only things that will be asked in the interviews? Yes. So apart from these, what might be asked is entirely related to your project. All right. So if your project is really simple, you do not have to worry about it, because you probably might be knowing a lot about it. But if your project is slightly complex, or you might have not done the entire project, you might have taken help from someone else, then probably you'll have to brush up a little more, because they have seemed to be asking a lot of questions related to projects. All right. So these are the concepts what you'll have to be familiar with when it comes to the interview part. Okay. So these are the concepts what you'll have to be prepared with, guys. So one by one, now let's go ahead with the questions which they have asked, and how you can answer the questions related to whatever they have asked. All right. So certain questions related to technical concepts. So we'll be discussing HR and technical separately. But you should understand that there are no two panelists. Okay, there's only one panelist in most of the cases, and both the questions, both your technical question and your HR question, will be asked by the same person over here. And the most important thing for you to understand is, he'll first of all take into consideration your stream, and he'll also ask you, or she'll also ask you, what exactly is your language, or what exactly is your forte when it comes to programming language. And probably based on that, the questions will be asked. Okay, apart from these concepts like OOPS, data structures to a certain extent, dynamic programming, and the pseudocode part, you'll have to be pretty much familiar with. All right. So these are the technical things what I would advise you to concentrate on. So now let's go to the questions which were asked. So I was speaking about dynamic, the fundamentals of technical concept, right? So when it comes to fundamentals of technical concept, there are a lot of algorithms what you'll have to be familiar with. So this was one basic question which was asked. So what exactly do you mean by dynamic programming? All right. So when it comes to dynamic programming, it is nothing but a way in which you code in a very optimized manner. So there are a lot of algorithms which you'll have to use when it comes to dynamic programming. To name some, we have got something called as knapsack. We have got the Destras, right? So we have got a lot of algorithms over there. So please try just understanding at least what the algorithms are. So even if you do not know all the algorithms, so when this question will be asked, you can see that, okay, this is what a dynamic programming is, the definition what I've just told you. And then you can use certain examples, probably, to try explaining that, okay, so this is where exactly dynamic programming is used, and this is how it is used. All right. So ultimately, what you'll have to portray yourself as is that you are at least familiar with the basics, if not the entire advanced concepts. Okay. So that is one question which was asked. So next up, fundamentals of technical concepts again. So questions related to pointers. So again, pointers, I understand when it comes to advanced languages, you'll not be explicitly using it, but even in advanced languages, in the backend, it'll be used. Right. So in the backend, implicitly, the computer will be using pointers, but we will not be able to access, or we will not be able to do it explicitly by ourselves when it comes to higher level languages. But when it comes to lower level languages, C, C++, we can do that. So if you're familiar with the concept of pointers, you do not have to worry about it. If not, it is pretty simple, guys. So I would advise you to have a look at it as well. Then string manipulations questions were asked. So string manipulation, as in what are the methods we have to manipulate the string. So when it comes to concatenation, comparing, finding the length of it, reversals, converting the string to uppercase, lowercase, converting the character to uppercase, lowercase. So what are the methods we have got, where are they present, in which particular header files are they present, right? So all these are the questions which you asked when it comes to your strings concept. So when it comes to data types concept, certain things like typecasting. Okay, so you should be familiar with something called as typecasting. So if you have to convert from character to integer, how do you do that, right? So if you have to convert from double to float or vice versa, so how do you do that? So you'll have to be familiar with all these things, and basic of the basic things like how many types of data types are there. So you have got three types, right? So you have got basic or the primitive data types, derived data types, and the user-defined data types. So you'll have to probably brush up on those. So these are the things which were asked when it comes to the fundamentals of pointers, strings, and data types. All right. One more question which was asked is, do you know anything about OOPS? So as I told, they are being slightly lenient over there or liberal over here. So they're not being specific, correct? So they'll just go with the questions based on your level. So as I told, they'll first be understanding what is your level. They'll try to understand how much you know about the concepts. And based on that, there'll be questions asked. So you do not have to worry about like, okay, fine, I'm not pretty good with OOPS. So will they be asking something called as function overriding? Will they be asking something called as scope resolution and a super keyword? So you do not have to worry about that. So but having said that, please be prepared with the four pillars of OOPS. So this question was prominently seen in most of the cases which we had analyzed. So what are the four pillars of OOPS is what was asked. So probably you might be already knowing. So data abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance, and polymorphism, right? So classes and objects, we cannot call them as pillars. So four pillars of OOPS are object-oriented programming concepts are data abstraction, polymorphism, inheritance, and encapsulation. So you can just remember this, and you'll also have to dig up a little bit deep on these concepts. What exactly is data abstraction? What are the other things like polymorphism, inheritance, and encapsulation? So these are pretty easy, but one more case what I had talked about to a student. So he was asked to explain it in the simplest manner possible. So he was asked to explain. Okay, so this was a question. Imagine that I am the HR and I am the asking the question to the student, right? So the question was like, assume that I am a 10th standard student. Okay, assume that I'm a 10th standard student, and you're supposed to explain me what exactly is polymorphism. All right, so this is one question which was actually pretty interesting because if you're a 10th standard kid, you'll have to make things pretty much simple, right? So you cannot use a lot of technical terminologies over there. So try to understand the concept rather than mugging up the definitions. So mugging up the definitions will not help you a lot, guys. So try understanding the concepts, and if you have understood the concept, be it a 10th standard kid or whoever it is, you'll be able to explain it to them in a very neat fashion. All right, so that's about the four pillars of OOPS concept. And yeah, so this I've already told you, but anyway, certain packages and modules which are predefined. So lot of packages and modules are present. So if you have to deal with strings, we have got one package. If you have to deal with numbers, you have got one. So Python, when it comes, you have got a lot of packages, right? So you'll have to be familiar with at least 5 or 6 packages and their methods or modules, right? So that is one thing. And the problem over here is if you have written in your resume that I've implemented a lot of projects based on the modules. I've done a lot of internships based on this particular specific language. Then that would give the HR a lot of scope to ask questions related to this. Okay, so having said that, I'm not asking you to remove things off from your resume. So I'm just giving you a heads up that if there is anything written in your resume that is related to slightly complex terminologies of programming languages, right? So let's say you have written something related to MATLAB, or if you have written something related to NumPy arrays, or if you have written something related to AI MLs, right? So that will involve a lot of packages and modules. So you'll also be you'll also have to be pretty much aware with all those things. Okay, or if not, it'll just seem like you're lying through the resume over there. All right, so that is one heads up what I would like to give you over there. Next thing is, yes, so you saw that point, right? The students, certain students were also asked to write a program of their choice and certain specific programs as well when it comes to certain interviews. Okay, so this is why exactly I had asked you to note down the toolbar which is used to share the screen. Right, so people were asked to share the screen. Specifically, I think it was Notepad, or they were probably asked to type it in any specific format, whichever they were comfortable with. So they were asked to open this particular application, type the code for the program, whatever they tell. So one or two cases, what I had seen is the level was pretty simple, like a factorial of a number, or give me the Fibonacci series, or tell me if the number is palindrome or not, tell me if the string is anagram or not, right? So that level of questions were asked. So you do not have to worry again, okay, fine. So will the programming questions be pretty much difficult? So you do not have to worry about that. So yes, there might be questions which will be asked just to check how good you are in terms of programming. So please be prepared for that as well. Okay, so remember the screen sharing tool. So do not forget about that, guys. Right, so I don't want you to look like a fool in front of the HR. So please be prepared, upfront. So these were the questions which were related to technical. So apart from these, as I told, a lot of questions related to project. So there was one a project which was related to MLAI. So the entire 20 minutes, the HR took over in asking questions related to AI ML. Right, so it's not necessary that the HR should know all the answers, but he will anyway have a laptop and a Google there, right? So whatever you're answering, he'll be able to check it right then and there, even if you try to make your answers pretty complex. Okay, so do not try to fool the HR over there. So please try to know your resumes. So whatever you have put in your resume becomes very, very important at this particular point of time. All right, so that is this particular context, right? So we'll try to understand what were the questions that were related to your HR, part, right? So the personal interview part. So most common, I have not seen any candidate who had missed this particular question. So the most common question which was asked is introduce yourself. So that is again a very, very basic question and a standard question. So the one way in which you can best answer this particular question is be prepared for at least 1 minute of time duration wherein you can tell about yourself. Right, so you'll have to be prepared with at least for 1 minute wherein you can speak something related to yourself. But if you ask me, the optimum way of answering to this particular question to introduce yourself or tell me about yourself is go on speaking about yourself, because you know a lot about yourself. You're at least some years up ahead now, so you have done a lot of things in your life. You have known about you at least for some years, so go on speaking about yourself for a certain duration of time. Okay, but if you ask me, I would tell you to talk until and unless the HR asks you to stop. Okay, or until and unless he or she intervenes in between. Okay, all right, fine, so next question for you is this, so something like that, right? So that would be the optimum way. But if you're not able to go on speaking like a jam, or if you're not able to go on telling about yourself for a very long time, I would advise you to at least speak about yourself for a minute. Okay, minimum duration. So that would be the optimum choice. All right, so that was one question which which was predominantly asked in all the cases, right? So they started with that particular question in most of the cases. Next thing, certain questions like what is your favorite topic in engineering? So these questions are like very, very basic, and they are scenario based. So I cannot say that these questions will be asked similarly for everybody. So it also depends on the mood of the HR, and it also depends on what exactly your personality is, right? So how exactly you have portrayed yourself in the resume. So please try speaking up. So just be yourself and speak up, guys. So that's about it when it comes to the HR question. So anyway, we'll see certain other questions. Which is your favorite topic? Okay, introduce yourself. Okay, the point got missed over there, not a problem. Yeah, next is what are your hobbies? Project based questions and internships. Okay, I'm not sure how many of you have put internships in your resumes, So if you put something related to internships, in most of the cases, what we'll be doing is we'll be doing internship just for namesakes, right? So just to get a certificate or just to put in our resume that we have done something like this in particular company. So do not do that, guys, because as I told, most of the questions were asked from three places. So first is your resume, second is your project, third is your internship, if in case you have done. So please be prepared with these questions. So if you have done certain internships, you'll also have to be prepared with answering what exactly you have done in this specific company, right? So for example, even if it's a mechanical internship, what you have done, you'll have to be in a position to explain the HR in the simplest possible manner. What exactly are the things what you had learned, or what are the skill sets that you had obtained from that particular internship. All right. So this is one more thing what you'll have to be prepared on. So the other questions are pretty simple, like what are your hobbies, and then so this is again one of the questions which we had seen a lot when it comes to all around the interviews, right? So tell me something about the current trends. Okay, tell me something about the current trends that is going on. So the current trends are obviously something related to AIs and MLs and all that. So you'll have to be slightly aware of that. All right, so you'll have to be slightly aware of that. So Deepthi has a question over here, applicable to InfiTQ. Right. So this is what we had seen in the on-campus drive. What had happened, Deepthi. So I cannot assure you that this is also applicable for InfiTQ, but I think you can probably take some pointers from this particular question. All right. So that's to answer that question over there, Deepthi. Uh, okay, Loki. Okay, Loki is asking a question. Infosys off-campus. Okay, can anybody apply related to 2022? So no official confirmation has been given related to any specific pass outs, year of pass outs. So we'll try waiting for it. We'll anyway update in our channels, Loki. So please be aware of that. Harini, can we update our resumes and send it? So I would not advise you to update your resumes and attach it over there. Whatever, if in case they have already taken your resumes, I'm not sure if they have done already. So if in case they have already taken your resumes, so it'll be like two different copies, right? So in one resume, if you have mentioned that I know Python, in the other resume, if you have not mentioned that I do not know Python, that will be a total ambiguity. So the HR might ask you, why exactly have you written that you know Python then, right? So that might backfire. So until and unless it is a small change what you would wish to do, I think I would advise you not to make a lot of changes when it comes to your resume. All right. Uh, yeah, Nikhil, yes, that sorts of questions were also asked. So I'll just put it across. Shravanti, I've already answered that question, but anyway, to answer it again, there's no specific difference between phase one and phase two. Just for their naming convention, for Infi's purpose, they've kept it as phase one and phase two. All right, so they'll be doing the interview in a staggered fashion. So probably it might stretch for 1 or 2 weeks more. So that's how exactly it is done. Or they might also decide to clear off phase one now, and they might decide to do the phase two in a coming month or the next month after that. So it's just for the naming convention is what they've given, nothing else. All right. The total results are not out yet. So Yogesh, I cannot say what is the percentage of rejection. So all the analysis, what I'm speaking about is related to the interview that had happened. So they have not announced in any specific college like who is selected entirely and who is not selected entirely. So we just have to wait for that. All right. So rejection rate, Swarnamala, I think I've answered that question. Uh, Sri Charan, I think I missed your question. Will they ask branch specific questions? Yes. Branch specific questions were also seen to be asked related to projects. So until and unless you say that my project is related to specific computer science, what can I say? So if my project is related to something of a robotics, or if my project is related to something of Arduino types, they'll be asking questions related to that. Or if you say my project is related to something pretty much very complex, like a core thermal or core architectural, right? So they'll not be asking in-depth questions related to that, but anyway, they'll be asking questions related to branch. All right, so be prepared on that as well. Uh, yeah, Pratik, I hope I've answered that question of yours. When will interview happen? Priya, I think your TPO would be the best person to answer that question because it's happening in different dates for different colleges. All right. Uh, Pulak, yeah, I think you can. Phase one students have good probability to select than phase two. Okay, Sharat Chandra, nothing like that. So I have already answered that question. So it's just a naming convention what they're using. All right. So it all depends on how you perform. So there's nothing like phase one students will have high probability or phase two students will have high probability. So you just have to answer appropriately. That is the only thing will get you selected. How much will they recruit? Okay, so Pavitra, again, that depends on the college and the entire turnout. So I'll not be able to answer that. Uh, Parth, you can anyway mail at support@faceacademy.in, right? Mridul Gandhi, I have probably answered that question. Core concepts, yes, they have asked something related to your projects. So, project they'll ask you to explain. So, please be very simple in explaining when it comes to your project. So, if you use very technical terminologies, so I'll tell you how it works, guys. When it comes to your interviews, right, I'll tell you a simple trick how it works. So, you can probably work on that. So this will work in most of the interviews, and this interview also it should work because based on the analysis what I and my team have done, it should also work for this interview as well. So I think you have seen this in Viva, right? So the questions what you answer, okay, based on the answers what you give, there'll be the next question which will pop up. Correct. So I think you might have seen in a lot of Vivavos, right? So same thing is happening in most of the interviews. So specifically according to the analysis what we have done. So according to the Infosys HRs, let's say I've given some answers related to my project. All right. So they'll start asking related to the project, or they'll start specifically asking related to certain terminologies what I had used in my explanation. So if you have used certain very tricky terminologies when you started explaining, then you are putting yourself into trouble there. Okay, so you'll have to be pretty simple in your answers. Make sure that the HR understands it. And in specific, if he asks any very tough terminologies, then you can go about it and try answering it. But until and unless that, do not put yourselves into trouble. Do not let it backfire. Sorry. All right. Question from DBMS we had not seen so far, Shekhar, but until and unless you have a project which is related to DBMS, I don't think they'll be specifically touching that part. If the interview time is less, would that mean I'm selected? Okay, so there has been instances, as I told, the actual time duration is 30 minutes, but there has been instances where the time duration is 10 to 15 minutes. There has been instances where the time duration is 45 minutes as well. So you cannot say that if your time duration is less, you are rejected, or you cannot say that if your time duration is more, you're selected. All right. So what happens is, people who have the earliest slots, so the HR will be in a very good mood that time, right? So they'll be having a fresh mindset. So there might be a situation where they'll be asking a lot of questions to even a person who does not know anything. All right. Or there can also be chances, okay, the HR will assume that, okay, I'll have to finish off the interview pretty soon today. So he might also finish off each and every interview in 10 to 15 minutes. So you cannot predict that, okay, just because my slot was only for 10-15 minutes, I'm not selected. You cannot predict like that, guys. Okay. So do not keep that in mind and go to the interviews. Sudhanshu, yeah, that will slightly be delayed, but Correct. So yeah, offers, yes. When it comes to offers, it is slightly delayed. So correct. You just have to keep your fingers crossed over there. I'm just seeing your questions, guys. So I anyway have certain more questions for you. So these are the questions I think probably you might have heard from your friends as well. So there were questions like why Infosys, why specifically your college, or why mechanical or why IT, right? So all these questions were there, and reallocation and shifts. Okay, so relocations and shifts specifically were asked to most of the candidates out there. So you will have to be prepared to answer these questions. So relocation, basically because everything is happening remote right now, correct? So you might be have to ask to shift to a place which you might not be comfortable with. But anyway, you can slightly try explaining in a diplomatic manner that okay, I am okay in relocation, but until and unless it is coming under my own comfortable zone, or you can directly say that I always like to travel, but when it comes to certain times, I would not wish to go to certain places. So you can try putting your thoughts up front. So do not directly agree to relocating if you are not okay with relocation. All right. So same goes for your shifts as well. So shifts again, you will have to you'll probably having 3 or 4 shifts when it comes to Infi. So you'll have to be pretty good in answering that question as well. All right. Uh, Okay, to answer the question, what is meant by system engineer? So when it comes to this particular role, you would be put inside a particular project, all right? So where you would have to deal with a lot of people, you'll have to deal with a lot of concepts that you are familiar with, and then you'd have to deploy a particular software, or you'd have to manage a certain product which is already deployed. So system engineer as in, yeah, you'll have to work with a small project first. So that is what they'll be deploying you into. So they'll not be directly giving you a project to handle. So furthermore, they'll also be giving you a project to handle. And you would have to do a lot of analysis or analytics, or that actually will be a different sector. But being a system engineer, you just have to concentrate on the coding part, or you'll have to concentrate on the peripherals of the entire system. All right, so that's about system engineer. Yeah, you can definitely ask about the CTC breakdown with the HR. So ultimately, in the last, there will be a, probably there'll be a question asked. Do you have any questions for me? Correct. So if you have any questions, you can definitely go ahead in asking the HR, and you can get your doubts sorted then and there. So no, none of the HRs will say, okay, I'm not able to, I'll not answer this question. But if your questions are pretty direct, like for example, if you ask the HR, okay, am I selected? That they might not be able to answer. So for this, the only answer what you might get is, okay, we will let you know. So do not ask any direct questions like that. So you can always ask questions related to your CTC packages, or job roles, job descriptions, all those things, right? So you can ask that. We are anticipating that there will not be any further rounds, Yashwant. But anyway, they have not confirmed anything yet so far. So fingers crossed. Hemant, most of the cases, yes. Hemant Raju, yes, because that's the biggest campus out there. But anyway, let's see how it works out for you. Yeah, mechanical engineering. Okay, I'll just take you across to 2 of the students what I had spoken. One specifically a non-circuitry background, mechanical student. Second student is a circuitry background student. All right. So this is how it happened for the mechanical student. So he went into the virtual interview room, and once he logged in using Cisco WebEx, okay, so he was asked to spot his college ID card through the camera, and also government ID proof. So they were probably looking at the numbers, specific numbers which was present in the government ID proofs. And the questionnaire started with a simple question like, tell me about yourself. And after that, there were certain questions related to his programming concepts. So because you had a particular round in Infosys, right? So where you had to at least answer some of the pseudocode questions, right? So based on that, they'll probably judge you, because if you have cleared the online test, you should at least be knowing certain things related to programming concepts. So they'll just check if you have done it on your own, or if you have done something else, right? So 2 or 3 questions will be based on pseudocode or certain programming concepts. They might also go to an extent in asking you to share the screen and type the code down. So he was asked to write a code on a factorial. Okay, factorial of a given number using any specific concept, be it recursion or be it looping concept, but you'll have to write a program for factorial. So this is what he was asked. And after this, they started directly asking things related to his project. Because the answer what he had given is, I'm not that proficient when it comes to the other languages, but I'm pretty good in C, C++. All right. So certain questions were asked related to OOPS, certain questions related to the factorial question, and then they shifted to your questions related to project. All right. So here they asked a lot of questions related to project, because that's what he has been doing, or at least he has to plan for doing further, right? Or what he has planned for doing further. So he told about his project. So based on that, they picked certain terminologies, and there were questions based on that. And ultimately, at the end, for at least like 3 or 4 minutes, there were general questions like, tell me about your hobbies, what are your strengths and weaknesses, and all those standard questions what they have, right? So this was basically for the mechanical student what I had talked about. All right. So when it comes to the circuitry branch student, so same thing had happened. So once he entered inside the virtual room, Cisco WebEx is the platform. One panelist again. So all the documents were verified. And once that is done, again the common question: tell me about yourself. And once that is done, they started with the coding question again. Okay. So here the questions were slightly asked lesser related to the project, because the person was from a circuitry background, right? So if you are from a circuitry background, you'll have to brush up a lot when it comes to your okay, you'll have to brush up a lot when it comes to your basic concepts. Okay, so be familiar with all the things what you've prepared from past 3 years, guys. So it can be SDLC, it can be anything. So even the concepts, theoretical concepts, please try to brush it up. All right. And after he was asked with, okay, for 1 or 2 minutes, he was asked with certain questions based on his project. So his project was specifically related to AI. So he was thrown a lot of questions related to AI. And once that was done, again, 1 or 2 questions related to, what are your hobbies or all those things. So it's going to be pretty simple, guys. So irrespective of what stream or background you're from, circuitry or non-circuitry, you will definitely be able to answer the questions. But yeah, that's the main thing. You'll have to be in a situation to answer anything. All right. So I've given you 2 scenarios. Now let's try answering certain questions. Suggestions for, do you have any questions? All right. So how do you answer this particular question? Do you have any questions for me? So if I have to ask any questions, I'll definitely say yes, sir. If I am allowed to answer, ask any questions, can I please ask? So definitely the HR will say, please go ahead. All right. So once they say that, I will probably ask questions related to whatever you have, let's say related to, the job profile or the job description, or you can also probably ask about reallocations, shifts. All right. So these are the main things what you'll have to be worried about. So fingers crossed, let's say that everybody over here gets selected. So next thing what you'll have to worry about is the shifts and the relocations, right? So those are the 2 main things. So you can ask probably based on that, on the packages and the job role, job profile. So you can ask questions based on that. So I hope I've answered that question. Adarsh, I've given the entire scenario over there for a mechanical student. I hope you were there. Check LinkedIn ID for interviewer. All right. So Kushal, Yeah, so probably you would not know who your interviewer is. So if you already know who your interviewer is, you can definitely check who your interviewer is via LinkedIn. Yes, most of the HRs are out there. But if you're not aware of who it is, how exactly are you going to do it? Right. So that's I don't think that's pretty much advisable. Yeah, you can put up ongoing projects in your resume. But once you put up a name over there, you can just put up a condition, just like what you can see in the ads, right? In the bottom corner, they'll put TNC applied or something like that. So you can put a star right next to your project name, and below at the top, below bottom corner, you can say star. Project is still under progress, something like that, right? Yeah, Manivanan, yeah. What we had seen is they had asked to spot it via camera, okay, through the camera. But I would also advise you to have a digitized copy. So in case it is not seen via the camera appropriately, they might ask you to, upload it somewhere. So please have a digitized copy as well when it comes to the documents. Technical questions for biotechnology students. So Vishnu Priya, they'll only be asking things which you know. So if you're not entirely aware of programming concepts, they will not touch that particular part at all. So ultimately, what they want to see is if this particular candidate is good enough for an organization, and will he be able to learn if he does not know anything, or will she be able to learn specific things if she does not know anything, and how good of a learner is he or she, how fast can he or she learn, right? So all these parameters will definitely be considered. All right. uh, Nihal, resume so far they had not asked in any of the interviews, but anyway you can have a digitized copy. uh, yeah, why electrical and why IT, right? Cool. So Kushal, if they're doing it, I think you can do that. So you can, if you want to impress your HR. Okay. So for Kushal, it was 24 hours before the interview. So if you already know who exactly your HR is going to be, I think you can probably try digging up some details and try impressing the HR in such a way that okay, fine. So you can try having the same wavelength. For example, if I'm the HR and I was pretty good in certain concepts like MLIs, you can also say that okay, I my aspiration is also MLAIs, but that might also backfire you. So please be careful in whatever you speak, guys. All right. So mentioned CMS office. Yeah, that's totally fine. Utkarsha, yeah, that should be fine. Not a problem. Yeah, it will be the same round, Partha. So technical and your HR is going to happen in the same round, same panelist. All right, one single panelist, he'll be asking the questions or she'll be asking the questions. Uh, yeah, Deepika Shini, I would not advise you to, totally update your resume because I had given you an example. So in the older resume, if you had something called as I'm good in Python, if you updated your resume, do not have saying that you're good in Python. That's like you're lying over there, right? So I would not advise you to totally modify your resume, but if there's a small change, yeah, fine, you can do that. Siddharth, they probably would not inform which particular, yeah, they would not do that. So it all happens once you get inside Infosys and you get trained. So right up front, they'll not be saying it anything. Yeah, tech questions for everybody, guys. Technology-based questions for everybody, be it biotech, be it architecture, be it mechanical or civil ESC. They will only ask questions which you are familiar with. All right, so do not fret about it. Do not be in a very panic situation. I'm repeating this for the I don't know, like fourth or fifth time. So please be aware of the concepts what you've written in your resume. So one last thing, one last slide I've got. So I'll just display the things what you're supposed to remember when it comes to interviews. Then probably I can wind up this session on the workshop of interview Infosys. So these are the things what you'll have to be remembering. So documents, please remember. So ID card and any of your government ID proofs, you'll definitely have to bring. So no specific rescheduling will be done, is what I've heard from certain students. I'm not sure to how much extent this is legit, but please try not to skip your interviews. So keep checking your mails, guys. So it's a high time for you to stop checking your WhatsApp or Instas or FBs or whatever it is for time being, and keep checking your mails. because all the information is being circulated via emails. So do that. And technical setup, please have a power backup and please have an internet backup. All right. So in case God forbid that nothing happens over there, but in case something happens, you would have to be in a situation to control that mishap. Right. So please be having a backup for your powers and internet, and know your CVs. Very, 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 very important. So that is why I put very, 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 very important over there. Know your CVs or resumes. So whatever you have put in your resumes will only be asked. So projects or your skill sets or whatever it is. So know what you have put in your CVs. Do not just dump it down there. So fundamentals of everything, as in you'll have to be prepared with the fundamentals of at least whatever you have put in your CVs. So the language is what you have put in your CVs, and I think that should suffice. And the last point, anyway, I've told you, keep checking your emails. Put most of it. Someone had interview. I'm not able to understand Priya's question. Okay. Karthik is asking, will they ask questions related to collections in Java? So, okay. So in some point of time, let's say Karthik, you have given an answer in such a way that you have taken out the keyword called as collection. Then definitely that would catch the attention of the HRs, and they probably might ask questions related to collections. So that's what I'm saying. When you answer, please be careful in whatever terminologies what you use. All right. So do not let it backfire you. Can you update your resume? That's what I'm talking about. So people who are asking if I can update my resume. So that's what I'm telling you. Do not make large changes. Okay, they'll not be asking. So far, we have not seen that they had asked in any of the candidature process. All right. So when it happened, the recent interviews. So anyway, if you want to modify, just slight modifications you can do is what I'm advising you. Do not go to modify a lot of things. Like for example, entire skill set. Do not remove over there. All right. So yeah. Can we write the program? Yeah, you will probably ask to write the programs. Yes, there were scenarios. All right. What happens if I cannot answer one or two questions? Google, that ultimately, that depends on how you have answered the other questions. Right? So I cannot say that will not be selected directly. So it all depends on how many questions you have answered, how you have answered the other questions, and how you have answered the questions which you have not answered. All right. So, yeah. Cool. So that's about it, probably, guys. So all the best to everybody who have attended this particular workshop. So it is going to be pretty simple. It's going to be pretty easy. So do not worry about it. And as I've told, well known. Okay, you'll have to be pretty well known about your resumes or CVs. So please try analyzing what you've written, and based on that, there'll be questions. So you do not have to worry about you're not from a technical background, you do not know anything. Please be aware of whatever you've written at least, so that should suffice. All right. So all the best, guys. Do well, and I hope everybody who has come to this particular workshop gets selected. Take care. Okay, stay safe. Bye-bye.